Hello and welcome to the webinar. My name is Jess Larkin and I am the Marketing and Communication Specialist at Cornerstone. Today we're going to talk about basic design principles and the tools that you can use as a small business owner to create your own designs in-house. My information is right here on the screen if you'd like to get in contact with me. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We post industry and Cornerstone updates and information, so visit Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube to give us a follow. All right, let's jump right in and talk about basic design. So just a quick reminder as we get started, you have 5 seconds to impress your audience and to communicate your value. Design is the most important element of your brand because it communicates a business's value and its meaning. You've likely had an initial aversion to the topic of design because you, quote unquote, aren't an artist, but design is about more than just making something pretty. Good branding and design can help you leave a lasting positive impression on your clients and prospects, but it's not as easy as slapping a logo on a Word document. An attractive branding piece with the right verbiage and a simple call to action can attract the attention of prospective clients and encourage them to engage further with your services. So today we're going to talk about basic design principles and my best tips for putting together attractive marketing pieces. We're also going to run through a flyer design demonstration as well so that you can follow along and create your own flyers. There are a number of basic copy and design principles to keep in mind when you're putting together your marketing, whether it's for flyers, videos, logos, or postcards. Considering the design process, which identifies a problem, produces a creative solution, and refines that solution, can help you create a marketing piece that is valuable for your client or your prospect. So let's break down that design process step by step. The first step of the design process is to consider the problem. What is it that your clients are struggling with? Is it affordability? Is it confusion about the market? Is it wanting to find a plan that protects their family? Identify their main problem by characterizing your typical client or the client you're attempting to reach. Asking these questions is key to success from the start. The second step is to determine the solution that you can offer and why that's a better solution than what's offered by the competition. For example, if your client is worried about affordability, consider tailoring your solution to your free consultation services. The third step is to test your solution. This means asking for feedback and determining what messaging works best for each specific client. It's important to note, a good solution is never complete, but always being refined and improved. Next, we have the call to action. You want your clients and prospects to take action on your marketing. While the pieces should be nice to look at, we do have a very specific goal in mind, and that's to make a sale, and ultimately a loyal client. A call to action tells your audience what to do next. You've hooked them in with your copy, and now you have to tell them how to take action. A call to action makes it clear to potential customers which action to take next, and helps remove that friction in moving the user down the sales funnel. Some examples of effective calls to action include call today, get started, get a quote, sign up for our newsletter, and so on. The key is to make the action clear and concise. You don't want to confuse your clients because that's how you lose them. Here's a bonus tip. Include only one call to action on your marketing pieces so that there's no room for misunderstanding. Next, we have the design rules. When designing marketing materials for Cornerstone, there are a number of different design rules that I keep in mind for a well thought out and cohesive brand. You may have noticed that all of our marketing uses the same color palette, has the same imagery, and is laid out in a specific way. This is done to make sure that our brand looks professional and is easily recognizable in the industry. So let's walk through the rules. Rule number 1, a consistent color palette. Consistency is key with design. When you determine your color palette for your brand, it's important not to stray from those colors. The colors you choose will help you stand out in a crowded market and help clients and prospects remember your brand. Inconsistency can make clients think that your brand is unprofessional and disorganized. Consistent brand coloring can massively increase brand identification, which ultimately can help boost sales and engagement. Rule number 2, easy to read and professional typography. One of the most damaging design no-nos are the fonts that you decide to use for your brand. There are thousands of fonts available online, from fonts that are beautifully simple to those that are intentionally funky. When creating your branding, consider using common fonts that are easy to read, like Sophia Pro, like we use on the Cornerstone marketing collateral, and as you can see on the screen in front of you. And as with your color palette, keep those fonts consistent throughout your branding. I would suggest finding a good font for your headers and a good font for your body paragraphs. You don't want to use fonts like this, which are difficult to read and a little bit over the top. They may look fun, but in practice, they are very ineffective. Let's also consider the layout of the fonts, because the words aren't equally spaced out and similarly sized, so it's very difficult to read. When you're adding copy to your marketing, keep in mind the size of the font, the type of the font, the spacing of the font, and the layout for the best readability. The main goal of choosing a font is finding one that is easy to read. The third rule is simplicity. Keep it simple. There's nothing more jarring than coming across a marketing piece with 6 starbursts, 10 different colors, text covering the whole piece, and overused calls to action. When designing your pieces, keep it as simple as possible. As we mentioned in the design process, identify the problem, create a solution, and include a call to action. It's that simple. The fourth rule is to use high-res visuals. We're all going to make a promise right now. Everyone put your hand up and repeat after me. I promise to never use a blurry, restricted image in my marketing materials again. This means refraining from just using Google images and copying what you see from there. Not only is that illegal, unless the content is specifically labeled for usage rights that allow you to use the image in commercial settings, but it often yields very low-res images that make your content look very unprofessional, like the images that you're seeing on the screen that are pixelated, a little old school, fuzzy, things like that. Instead, you want to consider using stock image sites like pexels.com or shutterstock.com that provide high-res photos that you can use, like what you see on the screen now, which are much sharper, much clearer. Some of these sites that I have on the screen are free and others are paid. All of them provide pretty high-quality photos, so they're all recommended by me. Next, we're going to talk about inclusive design. Especially in the health insurance industry, it's vitally important that your branding be accessible for clients with permanent disabilities such as blindness, hearing impairments, chronic diseases that restrict mobility, and so on. Therefore, there are compliance guidelines to keep in mind in accordance with the American Disability Act of 1990 when considering your branding. These guidelines are all created in an effort to keep your designs inclusive, which means keeping in mind the different kinds of people who will be accessing your materials. For example, if you're creating a video for your website, it's important to include an option for subtitles so that those with a hearing impairment can still watch the video. Going back to our discussions about fonts and choosing simplistic, easy-to-read fonts, it's important to maintain consistency with your fonts, like not using 10 different fonts, and using fonts that are appropriately sized, so no less than 12 point. And you should also give the ability to zoom in on digital materials just in case the fonts are too small. If you'd like to learn more about the importance of accessibility in design, I actually have a webinar that I did this year all about it, so go to the Cornerstone Resource Center and check that out. Next, we're going to talk about finding inspiration. If you're unsure of what you want your branding and your design to look like, a good idea is to find a brand that you like and emulate their style. So just poke around on the internet and get a feel for what other brands are doing these days to make their marketing stand out. It's a process of continually updating, rethinking, and reevaluating your existing brand so that you can stay ahead of the curve. And don't forget to ask for feedback, either from a trusted colleague, a friend, or even your clients who see your marketing and branding all the time. What do they like? What don't they like? You can gain some valuable insight just from asking for feedback. So as you consider your own marketing, be sure to go through this checklist. Number 1, is this piece identifying a problem and offering a solution? Number 2, did I include a call to action? Number 3, do your colors match your brand's color palette? Number 4, are the fonts simple and easy to read? Number 5, are your images sharp and high res? Number 6, does the layout of your piece make sense? Number 7, did you ask for feedback? Write this checklist down and keep it on your desk for the next time you make your own marketing materials. And you can also feel free to send them my way, and I can give you some tips and tricks on what I might do differently or what I might do to jazz it up a little bit. Okay, so now we are going to create a flyer design using Canva. And we're going to put everything that we learned into practice. So let's go to canva.com and we'll create a flyer and run through our checklist to make sure our design will be effective. So we are at canva.com, canva.com. This is a free website that you can use to create your brand assets like posters, flyers, brochures, social media posts, presentations, and even videos. And don't fret if you're not creative. Canva has thousands of templates that you can use to create your own pieces. So let's walk through how we can use Canva to create a simple flyer. First, we go to canva.com and we enter our username and password into the login. So at the top right-hand corner here, you see a login button and you see a sign up button. If you don't already have a Canva account, all you do is click sign up and you'll enter your information and you'll have your account in minutes. Once you do have your account, all you do is click login and you log in with your credentials. Once you log in, you're taken to the home page where all of your most recent designs are housed. I use the system for a number of different personal and professional applications, so I do have a lot of designs down here. So to get started, at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you click on Create a Design. Canva provides a number of different sizing and template options, including presentations, flyers, brochures, Facebook posts, logos, etc. Basically, it creates the size for you so that you don't have to look up the correct dimensions online. If you do have a particular project in mind that requires custom sizing, there is an option to create a piece with that custom size, and you can use either pixels, inches, millimeters, centimeters, and create that specific size. Right now, we're just going to make a flyer. So I will click on Flyer, which is going to generate a blank 8.5 by 11 template for me. Now we are at the design page and it's time to give our design a name. So right here, you can add a name for your flyer. So we're just going to call it Flyer 1. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, Canva provides you with a number of different template options to start with if you don't have an eye for design. You can click on any of these and change out the colors, the fonts, the pictures, but still have the design ready to go. So as you can see here, if you just click in here, you can change the text, you can change out the pictures, all of that stuff. So this is totally customizable and they have plenty of different options for you that you can use. So I encourage you, if you're not somebody who typically does a lot of marketing like this, I encourage you to try out these templates and see how they work for you. However, we want to put what we've learned into practice, so we're going to start with a flyer from scratch. So let me just go ahead and get rid of all this. So we're going to start first with the copy and the wording on the flyer. So if you remember, the first step of the checklist is to identify a problem and offer a solution, which is followed closely by step 2, which is to include a call to action. So let's say we're creating a flyer to let potential clients know to call me for individual health insurance. Let's consider the context of the piece. Individuals who are looking for health insurance may fit into a number of different buckets: dependents aging off their parents' plan, people who are in between jobs, people who are self-employed, etc. Let's say right now we're going to make a flyer for those who are aging off their parents' plan. So first, we're going to start with a heading. So all you do is go to text over here on the left-hand side, and it says add a heading. Based on our target audience, let's go with something like, are you new to health insurance? Can help. Very simple. Move that to the top, and we will address that later. The heading is very simple, and it should capture the attention of the audience that we are speaking to. Next, let's put the body of the piece into the flyer. This is where we want to include who we are, the problems that we can solve, and why our clients should choose us over the competition. So I put a body paragraph together ahead of time. I'm just going to go ahead and add that. All right, so I've just written out the body paragraph here. It looks a lot larger than it will be once we start sizing everything, but that's what we have here. And then at the bottom, we are also going to add our call to action using a subheading. So for that, I just wrote contact us today by phone or online for a free consultation or no obligation quote. Like I said, the sizing is going to be a little weird right now, but we will fix that as we go. So if we go back to our checklist, we have to ask, is this piece identifying a problem and offering a solution? And did I include a call to action? So we can check both of those boxes with the content that we laid out. We identified the problem of the lack of educational resources regarding the health insurance industry, and the call to action is at the bottom to get in contact with us. So check and check. Before we move forward, we're going to go ahead and add a logo and our contact information to the bottom of the flyer so that we don't forget. So I'm just going to use the Cornerstone logo for this because that's what I have available. As far as the contact information, all I do is typically write out the name of the agency, spell it correctly, I will. My goodness. And then I include the phone number. And I include the website. This is small, but like I said, we are going to figure this out as we go. So don't worry too much about the size of this piece. So I just stick those at the bottom as the branding of the flyer so that we don't forget to include that. So now it's time to move into the design portion of the flyer. And what I'm going to do is just walk you through the process of exactly how I would do it if I were designing this flyer on my own. So I'll walk you through my thought process, the things that I consider, why I consider things the way that I do, so on and so forth. So first, this is a little small, so we're just going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it a little easier. So I like to start from the top and work my way down. Ideally, when you're creating a flyer, you want the eye to move from the top to the bottom. So that's why the heading is so important. You want that to be the very first thing that they read. And then the eye will follow down past the body paragraph into the call to action. You want to make it so that if the client were only to read the header and the call to action, they would get the gist and they would still be able to figure out exactly what it is that you do. So, like I said, we're going to start at the top. Now, all of these sizings for the fonts are exactly the same as what you might find in like a Microsoft Word document. So we know that 15 font is actually quite large. Typically, your Word document will set the fonts automatically to 12. So we'll go ahead and make this 12 for the body paragraph. And for the heading, we'll go ahead and make that just a little bit smaller, but it's okay that it's large. Just going to move that down a little bit. I also like to left align. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. So I'll just get rid of the excess space here, left align, and then make sure to center it. The nice thing about Canva is that it offers these guides. You can see in pink here, the center line indicates that this piece that I'm moving right here is centered with the page. So I think that this could use a picture behind the header. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to find an image that I've used before. This one's a good one. And I'm just going to size it to the edges of the paper. Actually, I'm going to change this because I want to target dependents aging off their parents' plan. So I want to find something that looks a little bit younger. This one's good. All right, this is a better picture here. So what I do is I size it to the full size of the page, and then I crop it. However large I want it to be. So I like it to be longer rather than taller. So I'm just going to make it a little bit shorter like that and move it around. That's good. And now we have a picture in the back. But the problem is that you can see that this text is actually quite difficult to read now because we have a picture in the background. So to mitigate that issue, typically what I do is I go to Elements and I take a square shape, just like that, and I drag it over top of the image, like this, exactly the same size as the photo. And then obviously you can see this, these words a lot better, but you can't see the picture anymore. So we want to make this image transparent. So to do that, you select the box that we just created, and you click on these three little dots at the top here. And right next to the paint roller is an option to change the transparency of the block. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And then I'm going to move it until you can see the picture again, but you can also see the text. So right about 50 is actually good. And I'm going to change the color of the block as well to be like a dark gray. And then what I'm going to do is change the color of the font to be a white, so that's easier to see. And just to make that pop a little bit more, I'm going to add an effect to the text as well. So I'm just going to select the text box, not the actual text, just the text box. And then I'm going to click Effects. And I can add any kind of effect that I'd like, but for right now, I just wanted to stay off the page a little bit more. So I'm going to add a shadow to it. And I'm going to change the color of the shadow to black. Oops. And I'm going to boost the transparency just a little bit to make it a little bit sharper. And it's much easier to read now. Next, the thing that I don't like about this text is that it is far away. The lines, the top line and the bottom line are both very far away from each other. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that as well. So I select the text box just like I did before. And then right here with the spacing box, I'm going to click there and change the line spacing to be a little bit shorter. So now it looks a little bit more compact. All right, that looks good. Just doing a little bit more tinkering just to make sure that we can see everything properly. All right. All right, so that's the top of the piece done. We have our image, it looks clear, and we have our header, which is also clear. I'm actually going to change up this font as well because I want to do something a little bit different. I really like Noto Serif, so I like combining a serif font, so this font's with those little ticks at the tops and the bottoms of the letters. I like to pair that with a sans serif font, which does not have those little ticks, just like this one that you see here. And I'm going to change the body paragraph to be Garrett because I like the look of that font as well. There we go. Now we're going to take a look at the body. So like I said, I like to make things left aligned instead of centered. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. So we're just going to go ahead and change that. Now, something to note as well, if you have a word dangling here instead of on the same line as everything else, that is called an orphan or a widow. I can't remember which one it is. Typically, that's bad design, is if you leave that that word there. So you want to figure out how you can break down the text a little bit better to make it so that that word is not sitting there alone. So I'm going to add, I'm going to make the text box a little bit smaller so that it's not just sitting there by itself. And then I'm just going to move this to the center. You can use the guides to move this stuff to the center, so you can wait for that pink line. Or you can select the text box itself and then go to position, and then you can click center. Mine's already centered, so you can't center it any more than it's already centered. But that's also how you can make sure everything is in the center as well. I also want this top line to stand out just a little bit more. So I'm going to make that bold because that's a catching line. So I'm just going to go in and use Garrett Extra Bold. And then I have my call to action, which I'm just going to center, move around. I'm also going to lower the font just a little bit to 18. That seems good. And then I'm going to italicize it as well to make it stand out. And then this font, I'm actually going to boost up to 14 because we have quite a bit of room to do so. And then at the bottom here, I'm also going to bold Cornerstone so that they know who this is from and they'll be able to see the phone number and the web page even easier. All right, so we're just going to zoom out a little bit more. Take a look at the flyer one last time. Make sure everything looks good. All right, I think I'm happy with that. So once I'm happy with the flyer, I like to submit it for feedback like we talked about. So usually I'll ask my coworkers to review it, but sometimes if I'm looking for an unbiased opinion from like an everyday health consumer, I'll ask somebody in my family, like my sister, who is unfamiliar with health insurance, and she can review it and let me know if the content makes sense for her, if that's something that would catch her eye. That's always really helpful as well. And then once we have our feedback, we can review the remainder of our checklist. So let's go through one more time with this flyer that we've created. So do your colors match your brand's color palette? Yes, they do. We used a dark gray from our logo, so everything matches. And we don't have any rogue colors added to our flyer. Are the fonts simple and easy to read? Yes, they are. We can easily read this header. We can easily read the body paragraph. And to ensure that it does look good, I like to zoom out a little bit. If you can still kind of read it from here, that's a good font. If you can't, consider trying something else. Are your images sharp and high res? Yes, they are. If you zoom in, you can see that that is a very high res image. Not pixelated at all, so we're good to go. Does the layout of your piece make sense? Yes, if you go from top to bottom, your eyes naturally move in that direction, so we're good on that one. And we did ask for feedback, so that is done and done. Once we've completed our design, we can download it into a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG, etc., and submit it to print or for electronic distribution. So it's pretty simple. All you do is go to share up at the top right-hand corner and then click on download. And it gives you some options for file types. If you wanted to get it printed, you would obviously choose the PDF print option. If you just wanted to distribute it through email, the PDF standard is going to do well as well. Again, this software is called Canva at canva.com, canva.com. And as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity for customization. There's a lot that we didn't cover, like all of these different elements that you can add to your pieces, icons, backgrounds. If you're creating a social post, you can add little videos. You know, there's a lot of customization options from this. All right, and that's all I have for today. So thank you all for joining. The recording of this webinar is going to be available on the Resource Center along with all of the other recordings from this series and in others. Everyone have a great day and stay safe out there.